Good afternoon once again and welcome back to the post-lunch session of TiCon Kerala 2014. We have with us three key speakers at this hour of the day. And to begin with, let me take the privilege of inviting Athul Vir, CEO, entrepreneur and business ethic expert. Mr. Vir's work has led to 16 patents and a global reputation for innovation. As a speaker, Mr. Vir uses his personal story and expertise to motivate the audience around the world. So let's put our hands together and invite Mr. Vir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? I wanted to tell you about this Indian businessman who went to Switzerland. And while he was there, he decided to get a loan from the bank. And he went to the bank and he says, I'm looking for this loan. And so the banker said, well, you've come from India. What's your collateral? He says, well, I've got a Mercedes over here, and I can put that. And so the banker says, how much loan do you want? And he says, I want $100. So the banker was also confused. He says, you're putting your Mercedes and you want only $100? But he says, fine, that's a great deal. I'll give you the $100, leave your Mercedes, and I'll charge you 10%. And after a year, the deal went through. After a year, the businessman went back, returned the $100 and gave $10 more, and everything was okay, got his car keys back. The banker said, tell me, what happened? I mean, what kind of a deal is this? That was a great equity. He says, well, you have to think out of the box. I'm an entrepreneur, and where else in Geneva can I get parking for 1 year for $10? So that's what entrepreneurs have to do. The last time I was in Cochin was about 50 years ago. That time I was about 5 years old. And it's a beautiful city, and with trees and backwaters around. My father was a naval officer based over here, and we lived right on the backwater and with a beautiful view. But the strongest memory that I have is of the time I almost drowned. I often played with my friends on the water in one of the canals. And one day I saw a fishing boat some distance away, and the fishermen were trying to catch a large fish, which I thought was 15 or 20 feet. And I went closer and closer to the water, and I finally fell in. And I gasped for breath, I screamed for help, and somehow I made it back to the shore. At that time, I didn't know that I would become an entrepreneur. And many days I have the same feeling. Sometimes I'm above water, sometimes I'm below water, gasping for breath. These are struggles that we entrepreneurs every day, all over the world, face. President of Thai Global, Mr. Ashok Rao, President of Thai Kerala, Mr. A.V. George, Past President, Mr. Johnny Paul, Thai Board of Directors, ladies and gentlemen. We're all here today at Thai Kerala 2014, one of the world's largest entrepreneur conferences, to celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit. I want to take a moment to ask you an important question. Why are you an entrepreneur? I'll tell you why I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur because entrepreneurs are agents of change. Steve Jobs gave us the tools to connect with people around the world through devices that forever change how we communicate. Richard Branson has built a travel empire that gets us from point A to point B in faster ways. And what about Henry Ford, Sam Walton, Conrad Hilton, Thomas Edison, or in our home country, J.R.D. Tata, Dhirubhai Ambani, and Narayan Murthy? They inspire each of us to pursue entrepreneurism with the same passion for improving our world. The world depends on entrepreneurs to change society for the better, but the journey isn't easy. In order to get there, we have to weather ups and downs so dramatic that they're worthy of a Hollywood movie, or perhaps I should say Mollywood. I stand here today as an Indian-born businessman with a US-based global company called Equator Advanced Appliances. We manufacture household appliances, and our products are marketed in the US, Canada, and Europe. Equator is one of the only independent-owned companies in an industry packed with multinational corporations like Whirlpool, Electrolux, Bosch, LG, and Samsung. But don't be mistaken. The route to where I am today was not smoothly flowing. I've had my battles every step of the way, and weathering them has been the biggest test of my entrepreneurial spirit. My journey began here in India. After I completed my studies, I got a job offer to work in West Africa in a French-speaking country called Ivory Coast. I rose the ladder from finance manager of Ivory Coast to regional manager for West Africa, where I was responsible for 6 countries. I learned about international business and immersed myself in a completely different culture, including learning to speak French. My wife, who was working in New York City when we met, had moved to Africa. We had a great time in New York, in Africa, with the benefits of an expat posting, and we started planning our family. But fate had something else in mind for me. Suddenly, there was a military coup in Nigeria. The new government devalued the currency by 50%. The writing was on the wall. My employer would soon be out of business. I was at a crossroad. I could stay in Africa or move to England or return to India. I was ready for a new opportunity, so I decided to move to America. But once my family and I arrived in America, another twist confronted me. I struggled to find a job and was rejected by employer after employer. They said, "You've been educated overseas. We don't know what you did. You don't have any work experience. So what good are you over here?" I'll never forget one hiring manager who looked at my credentials and told me, "You don't know anything about America." I decided that if no one else would hire me, I would simply start my own business. This was a period of many firsts for me. It was my first time in America and my first taste of being an entrepreneur. I had many decisions to make, including where to start my business. I chose Houston because of its international port and international airport. 45 days after moving to Houston, I was opening my doors for business. It was April 1st, April Fool's Day. I didn't know it at the time, but running a business would be no joke. It would be the most serious commitment for the rest of my life. In those early days, I was selling commodities from Africa and exporting to the Middle East, but I really wanted to sell a product. One day, I got an idea after a conversation with my wife. We had a young child, and we were living in a small apartment. Every weekend, I would tell my wife, "We worked hard all week. Let's go to the beach and relax." But she always said, "I'm too busy doing laundry." After weeks of skipping the beach, I finally asked my wife, "Why don't we get a combo washer-dryer like we had in our apartment in London?" I'm sure you've seen traditional washing machines. You load your clothes in the washer and then wait about an hour for the wash to be done. In America, you load your clothes into a separate machine to dry, but in London, we had an all-in-one combo washer-dryer that washed and dried your clothes in the same machine without having to transfer them from the washer to the dryer. And it was heat dry. But when we went to the department stores in Houston looking for such a machine, they said such a machine did not exist. I couldn't believe it. It turns out that these combos were not available in America. I knew the combo would help a lot of people just like it would help my family. I was invigorated. I finally had an idea. Nothing could deter me, not even my lack of money. So I traveled to Europe to look for a manufacturer. This was no easy task because in America there are very stringent quality and safety standards. But after months of searching, I finally found the manufacturer I was looking for, who was located in Italy. They asked if I had the funds to bankroll the business. And despite my financial difficulties, I replied, "Yes, of course." From this, I always learned to appear confident and positive to others. After I found my manufacturer, I started promoting the machine to retail stores. One of my first prospective customers told me he would carry the combo if I brought in the inventory and managed the service, parts, and warranty. I asked him what brand he wanted on the machine. He said, "It's a new product, so any name will do. How about Equator?" Following this customer's advice, I went to get financing for my first batch of Equator appliances. That's where I hit the next roadblock. Every bank I visited asked for things like credit history, collateral, and a bunch of numbers I didn't have. But by then, I did have a stack of credit cards. I cashed them all out and wired the money to the factory in Italy. My first shipment was in production, and I had put everything on the line. I was now committed. A few months later, my first shipment of combos had finally arrived. But aside from that first customer, no one was buying. I thought the combo was the best product on earth. I knew it would change people's lives. I knew the machine had the highest quality standards. So where was the line of customers waiting to buy my amazing product? It turns out that people in America had never even seen these combos before. They were skeptical. Would the machines leak water? Who would do the service in case of a breakdown? What was this new unknown brand? Another fly-by-night operator? I knew if I didn't clear up these doubts, people would not buy my products. I decided to launch a press campaign. I sent a press release to newspapers and media outlets across the country. I hoped and prayed someone would notice. The strategy worked. Within months, we were treated and published in different major publications like Fortune, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Popular Mechanics, and Popular Science. Customers started calling our office. Then they started buying our products. The press campaign was just what Equator needed. Over the next 10 years, business grew, and so did our range of products. We sold combo washer dryers from Italy, dishwashers from Spain and Greece, refrigerators from Denmark and Germany, and food warmers from England. Before we knew it, we were known as the American company that specialized in European appliances. We had 2,000 dealers across the country and 8 distribution centers. However, we discovered that there were challenges in coordinating these multiple locations. To solve the problem, I decided to create a global business headquarters in Houston, near the home where my family still lives today. It was 60,000 square feet. We called it Equator Plaza. Its architecture reflected all the countries we did business with. It had Doric columns reminiscent of Greece, skylights inspired by the churches of Rome, a metallic silver color similar to Spain's Guggenheim Museum, and a roof in the same shape as the sacred door of the Buddha temple in Sanchi. Equator was flying high. We had enjoyed 10 years of growth. Our brand became so well known that customers would go to stores and ask for the Equator. But there was trouble on the horizon. Halfway across the world, more than 8,000 kilometers from Equator's headquarters, Europe was in turmoil. The European countries were coming together to form the European Union, and they decided to unite all their currencies. This caused an economic shakeup. Suddenly, our costs skyrocketed and, in fact, doubled. But American consumers didn't care about the economy in Europe. They wanted the same price they had been paying. Then, China entered the same market with low costs. This put even more pressure on European companies like our Italian manufacturer. Before we knew it, great companies were going out of business, left and right. One of these companies was the Italian supplier who had been making Equator machines since day one. They were bought out by one of the biggest appliance companies in the world. I still remember the day I got the news. The new company renamed our supplier Factory Number 23 and fired all the engineers. We didn't know it at the time, but they changed their manufacturing process. To save 30 cents per machine, they removed a surge protector from the main electronic module. This little surge protector proved to be a fatal flaw. Out of nowhere, The calls started rolling in to Equator's customer service lines. Thousands of customers complained that their machines weren't working. They told us our machines were breaking down and burning out, and some were even bursting into flames. Then it went from bad to worse. Customers began reporting us to the Better Business Bureau and the Government Safety Board. In America, quality standards are taken very seriously. If you violate these strict regulations, it could bar you from doing business ever again. We informed the Italian manufacturer of the problem. To our surprise, they told us that they were not responsible. But even though the manufacturer refused to pay my customers' claims, my customers still needed working machines. I vowed to stand by every single one of them. And with more than 25,000 angry customers and hundreds of frustrated dealers, this was no small feat. I shipped free machines and replacement parts to every single person with a faulty appliance. I honored every warranty at great expense. I used every dime I had to take care of my customers. Then, a few months later, we got another surprise. Our manufacturer told us that they were planning to enter the American market with their own brand name. Their strategy was to target Equator's dealers and customers. Suddenly, our supplier became our competitor. You may have heard a similar story about Steve Jobs and Apple. Years ago, Steve Jobs contracted with Samsung to make Apple products, but Samsung turned around and knocked off Apple's technology. Samsung went from being Apple's supplier to being one of its biggest competitors. To this day, many people believe Equator supplier shipped us defective products to put us out of business. Suddenly, we were a small company fighting a $5 billion global corporation. It was David versus Goliath. But instead of buckling under the pressure, I decided to file a lawsuit. And to make my point known, I delivered the court papers personally at a trade show where we were both exhibiting our products. The Italian manufacturer was stunned. They immediately hired one of America's top lawyers to defend them. It was their big law firm against our independent lawyer from a small office. We were the underdog, but we weren't willing to give in. The turning point came when their lawyer visited Equator's warehouse. We showed him thousands of burnt-out machines caused by the missing surge protector. Their lawyer was shocked. He told his client, "This is not how you do business." He advised the Italian manufacturer to settle our customers' claims. It was a landmark case with global implications, but it was a long, tough battle. You must fight for what you believe is right. Our customers had won, but the recall had nearly squashed Equator. We had received negative press, lost millions of dollars, and were left without a factory we could trust. Business slowed, and the company lost almost everything. The house of cards crumbled before my eyes. Many of my employees quit. Most of my suppliers backed out. My bankers canceled the loans. I decided to raise some cash by selling my building. One of my friends said he was interested in buying it, and we reached a deal. But through a sleight of hand, the person I trusted acquired control of the building. I was evicted. It was more than just my largest asset. The buildings signified the height of Equator's success, and that was the moment when I finally hit rock bottom. I struggled. I considered giving up. My spirit was at an all-time low. I realized that what had happened to me had also happened to many others. More than 90% of businesses fail. Their founders are left to deal with the cost of that failure, including health problems, alcoholism, depression, divorce, and sometimes worse. The only way out for me, and not to become just another statistic, was to find a way to redeem myself. I decided that I had to rebuild Equator. But this time I was determined to do it differently. I knew I had been burned before, figuratively and literally, and I would not risk this again. I decided to make a fresh start in China. I spoke with many Chinese companies as I tried to find the best partner to work with, and one stood out from the pack. This company was one of the oldest in China and was committed to making the best products in exchange for my patented technology. I soon set up a joint venture with them. It moved quickly. From there, we purchased land, put up the building, and started production. Equator was getting back on its feet, but there was still work to do. While we had battled through our recall, the market had changed drastically. More competitors had broken into the combo segment, including giant multinational Asian brands like Haier, LG, Samsung, as well as our old suppliers from Italy. We had been pioneers in the industry, but now we were losing market share. It was time for a comeback. Over the years, I had made many engineering advances, but the combo technology had remained the same for quite some time. So I added some innovation to the mix. I decided to work hand in hand with my engineers to create a completely redesigned combo. I oversaw this process diligently and made sure customer feedback was addressed in the new models. I visited the factory often, tested the machine, and after a few adjustments, our new product was ready to go. We called it the Super Combo. It was just the game changer Equator needed. 1.5 years after its release, the Super Combo has made successful strides. The product is on sale in American retail chains like Best Buy, Sears, Costco, Sam's Club, and Fry's. Because I had taken care of each customer during the recall, they were ready when I came back with the Super Combo. One of my dealers even told me, "I'm so glad you're back, Atul. We missed you." My customers had brought me back from the brink. I had supported them in the recall, and they turned out to be my true friends now. In that moment, I came to this realization. You must serve your customers above all else. As Equator continues to rebuild, we make customers our top priority. This holds true even as we set our sights on the rest of the world. We have set up a customer service headquarters in Pune, and we will launch products in Africa and Eastern Europe next year. It is ironic that after receiving my education in India, my story is now coming back full circle with the launch of Equator's products in India. When I decided to develop a special model for India, I talked to many friends here about my idea. They said, "You have missed the boat. There are so many companies here, so much competition. There are so many problems with electricity and water and so on. But an entrepreneur thinks differently." I analyzed the situation and separated these challenges into those we could control and those we could not. We cannot control our competitors or the market, but we can find solutions to many of the problems our customers face. People said that the electricity cut off, and when it came back on, the surge would burn the electronics. So we installed a surge protector in our machine and increased the surge capacity. People said that there was too much voltage fluctuation in their areas, so we installed a voltage stabilizer in the machine. People said that the electricity cut off during the wash, so we created a rechargeable battery that can complete the cycle if the power goes out. People said there was too much dirt and mud in the water, so we gave the machine a cleanable water filter. And then people said, the water would cut off during the wash cycle due to water shortage. Now what will you do? And this is what we came up with. We designed a secondary pump that can draw water from another source. So when the water from the main tap stops, the machine will automatically draw water from that other source, whether it's a bucket or a well or a lake or a river. Entrepreneurship is a never-ending process with continuous bumps in the road. I know I will continue to face many unexpected challenges, but as circumstances change, my goal is still the same: to create products that improve people's lives. This is the true spirit of entrepreneurism, creating businesses that change the world for the better. Entrepreneurism is not about making money. Money is the reward or the consequence of having happy customers. Of course, every company needs to make profits to sustain itself and generate resources for future development. Nowadays, business has got a bad name around the world. Whether it is General Motors failing to fix ignition problems that cause drivers to drive off the road, or Coca-Cola diluting its fruit drinks, or companies fixing their books. No wonder the average person thinks of business as being dishonest. I'd like to end with 3 lessons that will help you when challenges present themselves. The first is to innovate. But I don't mean innovating for the sake of it. I urge you to create products and services that truly enhance the value of your customers' lives. As you innovate, you must also pursue excellence in everything you do. It means building the best products or providing the best service. It means honoring agreements with your employees, your suppliers, and your business associates. Lastly, entrepreneurism all comes back to that realization I had after the recall. You must serve your customers above all else. As entrepreneurs, we have flexibility that larger corporations do not have. We do not need to have profits as the prime motive. We can truly choose to prioritize our customers. Each entrepreneur sitting in this room can improve our world, but it isn't easy. It takes a kind of resilience and fighting spirit that most people do not possess. And when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, your ethics will be tested. The way out is to abide by the principles I have shared today. The real joy of entrepreneurship is creating products and services, creating excellence in what you do. And by doing so, we help to create a better world. This is the spirit of an entrepreneur. It's time to continue this journey together. The world depends on us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I request you to stay back to collect the memento. I request Jose Dominic, our charter member of TAI Kerala, to kindly present the memento.